Alright, let's go ahead and get right on into it. Hello everybody, it's your boss, Joe Boss, and welcome to another daily plan stream. Man, 2 streams in a day, and we're doing another stream coming up here. Gotta schedule it for the next New York session coming up here. Let's go ahead and check out the heat map. Euro seems to be performing really well. Yens are performing pretty well. Swissy's doing all right, except against the Euro and the Yen. CAD is, all the rest of the currencies seem pretty mixed. Pound seems to be doing all right. New Zealand and the US dollar seem to be the 2 biggest losers here on the heat map at the moment. All right, let's go to financial juice. RBNZ did cut 25 basis points as expected. We're going to be going through some of these prints here and see what was exactly said at the RBNZ, plus some news articles on RBNZ and New Zealand economics. Let's see here. Anything else coming down the docket, right? We had some yen stuff, right? BoJ, Ueda speaks. All right. Ueda speaking in, honestly, a couple hours from now. I don't know if I'll be streaming out for like 3 hours for this stream. Probably keep this stream closer to an hour. And then if anybody wants to trade the Ueda stuff, you can hop into the Plan the Profit Discord, hang out in the group chat. I'll probably get, I'm going to be getting some programming done, but net, things are moving pretty well. Had some trades I just put on that aren't going so hot, but net things are going okay. So yeah, here's a euro dollar short. We went ahead, shorted there. It's been in drawdown, not out yet. Added up here because the yield spreads are still super negative. Actually got way more negative here. Instead of catching this upside, I caught the Aussie dollar on the downside. So this is the trade we exited at the last stream. After the stream, I got back in because the yield spreads got really negative, way more negative than any period of time here before that I was trading on this short. So I hopped back in on that, and I'm sitting pretty on it. And then I added into that short over here. And so far, the yield spreads are still pretty darn negative. We'll see if that actually leads to some lower prices here. Let's see here. On the CAD side, I did take a long because the yield spreads are also quite positive here. We'll see if that holds up on the US side of things. Equity indices. Yeah, we had that rise up, and we've given it all back. It's been given, all of it's been given back. So I don't know if this would, depending on your time horizon for your trading, maybe this is considered a dead cat bounce. Personally, I wouldn't consider this a dead cat bounce. I'd think a dead cat bounce kind of implies that it's over a few days, right? Not necessarily like a single day event, right? But you know, people will say this is a dead cat bounce, but I think that's kind of misconstruing the concept. All the equities so far seem to be sitting with pullbacks here from this rise that we had yesterday. Yeah, New Zealand's still getting hit hard. Aussie's holding in there. Let's check out Apple. Yeah, Apple's not doing so great. Apple's even lower now. Apple's now at 169. Yikes. Probably because of the tariffs, right? that are going into effect. Actually, they're now officially in effect. 50 minutes ago, at midnight East Coast time, we had 104% tariffs on China go into effect from the United States. So let's go ahead and catch up here with what's going on with the RBNZ. And we can zoom in here so it's easy for you guys to read as well. Yeah, so there's their rate cut. What's the commentary? As extent of tariffs become clear, committee has scope to lower the OCR further. Okay. As the extent and impact of tariff policies become clear, the committee has scope. Right. This has a repeat. Future policy decisions will be determined by the outlook for inflationary pressures over the medium term. Yeah. CPI near middle of band puts. Strong position to address developments. They see downside risk to CPI. All right. Monetary policy response. Tariffs will focus on medium-term implication for inflation. Okay, so it looks like they're focusing more on inflation expectations over there in New Zealand. A New Zealand dollar rises slightly after they reduce the rate as anticipated. Actually, if we go back and check out the New Zealand dollar here. Yeah, it kind of fell post RBNZ. But we've had a nice rip here, a little bit. Nice tiny bounce. This was a pretty big wick, 25 pips, big, quote unquote. Decent intraday sized wick. Again, these yield spreads are on the negative side, so I'm not too keen on staying bullish here. Let's head back. Do any other news coming through? Yeah, RBNZ, the members of the RBNZ are getting shuffled around quite a bit here. So this is some BoJ stuff, because we're getting Ueda. Ueda is speaking shortly here, who's the governor of the Bank of Japan. So we're going to go over some information to set some expectations. So let's see here. RBNZ makes latest interest rate decision. Yep, they cut. Economic activity in New Zealand has evolved largely as expected since the February monetary policy statement. Higher than expected export prices and a lower exchange rate have supported primary sector incomes and overall economic growth. Okay. Future policy decisions will be determined by the outlook for inflationary pressures over the medium term. All right, so they're going to be watching inflation expectations. That's going to be, it seems like, the primary driver for now. Yeah, firms remain optimistic for the year ahead. However, there remains a wide gap between firms' hopes for their future and their performance to date. Recent performance has remained sluggish, and a worrying resurgence in cost pressures is emerging. Hiring was about flat. Workers remain easy to find. All right. And then that's just all review. RBNZ points Hawksby to 6-month governor rule. Okay, so this guy's the new governor of the RBNZ. So let's go ahead and do a quick search. This guy got a Wikipedia page? No. No Wikipedia page for this dude. No. Wow. Yeah, the guy has no Wikipedia page. Looks like that guy's gonna get a Wikipedia page really soon, though, now that he's the governor of the RBNZ, at least temporarily. So the board recommended that the Minister of Finance appoint him, so he's going to be acting governor for another 6 months. He says he's proud to continue contributing as the governor. He'll hold the casting vote in the event of a tie. He first joined Central Bank as assistant governor and was later promoted to deputy governor and general manager of the Financial Stability Group. Before joining the RBNZ, he helped establish Harbor Asset Management and spent 9 years in senior positions at the Bank of England. Okay, so he's got a good experience. Cool. Terra fears cast shadow or Kiwi business optimism. Net 23% of firms were optimistic about general economic conditions in the coming months, up from 9% the prior quarter. Yep, so this was the QSBO. Yeah, we already went over this stuff yesterday, so no need to rehash it. Anything else interesting here? Nope. Trade tensions weigh on Canadian confidence. Okay, so this is Bank of Canada. Next week, we're getting the ECB, I believe, and Bank of Canada interest rate decisions. So let's real quick check this out. Tariffs dominated business consumer sentiment in the first quarter, with plenty of uncertainty around whether they should be levied, at what rate, for how long. Given the uncertainty remains and tariffs are now in place, we expect weakness to persist in the coming quarters. Just 43% of businesses expected sales growth over the coming year, down from 53% in the final quarter 2024. Yikes. So that's a pretty big hit. You know, not the biggest hit, but it's a pretty big hit. Only 31% of businesses plan to increase investment in machinery and equipment, while 31% expected to expand their workforce, both down significantly from prior levels. So the outlook in Canada economically is not so great. Yeah, Bank of Canada will deliver its next interest rate decision and monetary policy on April 16th. I believe they're expected to cut again. And then this is Westpac's first impressions of the RBNZ. Widely expected, yeah, they cut. They see downside risks to medium-term inflation. Overall, tone doesn't suggest a sense of undue alarm. High uncertainty about outlook due to global developments was recognized. Westpac expects another 25 basis point cut in May. The downside risk to the outlook implies risks of further easing from there. The data will determine the extent to which these crystallize. Okay. Finally, importantly, the RBNZ sees the overall economy as having evolved as expected in recent months, albeit with some differences in the composition of growth. Higher than expected export prices and a lower exchange rate, yeah, we already read this one, right, have supported primary sector incomes and overall economic growth. While monetary policy restraint has been removed at pace, household spending and residential investment have remained weak. Okay, so consumers aren't spending as much as they would like to see for further growth expectations to come down the line here. The RBNZ is correct in not being prescriptive in terms of how global events will evolve, how they will impact New Zealand. The reaction to the New Zealand dollar will be key in that regard. We expect the New Zealand dollar to take a significant part in the adjustment, especially if darker scenarios emerge. This will complete the usual playbook, all right? Large OCR cuts could end up being pro-cyclical if the New Zealand dollar is doing its job and providing stimulus, which I think implies a lower New Zealand dollar. Aside from economic data developments, the international commodity prices, especially for New Zealand's key exports, and the exchange rate will also be important in gauging the extent in which additional interest rate support is likely to be required to ensure that spare capacity in the economy is eliminated and that inflation stays close to the center of the RBNZ's target band. All right. I mean, that'll also come down to demand out of China, more or less. Yep, and there's the 104% tariffs being enacted. Let's go ahead and hop over to the charts for a little bit here. Check out what's going on. All right. So far, so good. Nothing crazy. Let's go ahead and check out dollar yen. Wow. What a move. 300 pips lower. Just in the last, call it, day and a half. Pretty nutty move there. Dollar CAD still holding up. And net, the Dixie is falling. But it doesn't seem to be doing so well against the yen. So we'll see what Ueda says. Let's go ahead and check out some of that stuff. Trump tariff talks may pressure the Bank of Japan to hike rates. All right. Here, if I go back over here, log in. There we go. Planned talks between Japan and the US about reciprocal tariffs have roiled markets. Japanese Finance Minister Kato responded by asserting that Japan, as we have said before, does not pursue a policy of currency depreciation. All right. Until just before the tariffs were announced, interest rate swap markets put the odds of a rate hike in June at nearly 40% and in July at 25%. And now it seems like we're probably going to get a hike in June or July. Both dropped below 10% after the stock market plunge. Oh, so no, it's hold. It's more holding. But views could change if the market regains stability and more importance is placed on BoJ rate hike to facilitate a rework of the reciprocal tariffs that touched off the turmoil. The yen's depreciation. Yep, this is review. Another key question going forward will be the timing of the next face-to-face meeting between Ishiba and Trump. If it comes during the Group of Seven, so the G7 summit scheduled for June 15th to 17th, they'll be extremely close to the June 17th BoJ monetary policy meeting. Okay. So ideally, Ishiba will want to meet Trump before the G7 summit in order to not be so close to the BoJ so then they can work on monetary policy there. Japan's top tariff negotiator readies policy cards for BoJ talks. So though that top team of negotiators is heading over to the United States, looks like they're going to be talking with BoJ. Do anything else? So the point man is this guy, Ryosei Akazawa, to lead the tariff negotiations with the United States. So we got to keep an eye on this guy here. Does he have an X account that we can follow? So that's the dude. And yes, he does have an X account. Look at him with his fist pumping. He hasn't... Oh, there we go. So his last post was April 1st. Last evening, a roundtable discussion with Yamamoto Ren, representative local women's project, for discussions. Okay, so that's just a cost of living thing. Oh my god. Akazawa gained some notoriety in August 2011 after berating the economy minister, Kaida, for 20 minutes on the floor of the Diet, which is kind of their house, I believe, over the ministry's handling of the Fukushima disaster, ultimately bringing Kieda to tears. This dude made a minister, the economic minister in Japan, cry. And he resigned a couple of days later. Oh my god. Man. Okay. Okay. Let's see here. Quote, even as the officials in charge negotiate, there will come a time when the prime minister himself will need to try and break the deadlock with a leaders summit. So they're probably talking about the G7 summit, June 15th through 17th. Leader of Japan's opposition told reporters Tuesday, which was yesterday. Okay. And Japan's bureaucrats struggled to come up with an answer to Trump's tariffs. Yeah, we don't need to read that one. A joint statement between President Mulino, Panama Canal Authority Administrator, and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. So they went ahead and had a meeting. They agreed. Two nations must stand together, shoulder to shoulder. In coordination with the Panama Canal Authority and recognition of the constitutional framework of the Panamanian state, the statutory relationship with the Panama Canal Authority and the obligations of the treaty, the expedited transit of warships and auxiliary vessels of the Republic of Panama and the United States is guaranteed. Okay, so there's some developments going on here. Oh, they're going to reestablish military exercises through the Panama Canal for the United States. All right. US dollar seeing a little bit of a rebound here at the open of the hour. Yen trims gains versus dollar. On news, the Ministry of Finance, Bank of Japan, and Financial Services Agency to meet. Okay. That's interesting. Japan bond futures increased slightly after report of Ministry of Finance Bank of Japan meeting. Okay. So I wonder what that's going to be about. To discuss international financial markets. Likely tariffs. They're going to hold the meeting 4 p.m. Japan time. Okay. What could that mean? Let's see if we can find some commentary here. The meeting is to discuss international financial markets and will place in a little under 2 hours from now. Expected there to be a joint statement after, but probably one without much to read too much into. All right, so on top of Ueda, we'll have one more statement here. I wonder if Ueda will say anything about that meeting during his speech. Maybe the meeting is after his speech, and then sometime around, like just before New York Open, we actually get a press release about what was said during that meeting. Let's see here. Yeah, Japanese regulators to hold an emergency meeting overseas funds blowing up and driving U.S. Treasury train tonight. Head of Futures and Forex at Tasty Live Show. See, this is why I have heads of research here. Head of Futures and Forex, right? He goes into the heads of research list. Let's see, has he said anything else? Oh, he actually reposted that Forex Live one. All right. So far, things are going good for me. Gotta reload this. Yep, so far all the trades are going well. We'll see if they keep doing well. But yeah, I think this is a pretty good place to actually stop the stream, actually. We got this nice little update. Most of the major things are happening in a couple hours from now. I'll be hanging out in the Discord. We go ahead and bring up the Discord over here. And if you want to hop in, link to it is in the description. Just go to WAP and hit join Plan the Profit community. And then you'll be able to hop in here into the trading room. Voice chat with me. I'll go ahead and hop in there now. And with that all said, it was a nice little straightforward stream. We caught up on some breaking news here. And then we'll go ahead and follow through with it in the stream that I'll be doing coming up here at the New York session. So in like 8-ish hours from now, 7-ish hours from now, we'll have another stream. And see how equities are doing. Actually, let's go ahead and real quick check out how Bitcoin is doing before we hop off. Bitcoin, yeah, everything had to pull back after the rise up at the end. Some people were calling for a V-shaped recovery coming through. Looks like gold is holding up better than most of these other assets against the dollar at the moment. But not oil. Not oil. And this has moved far ahead my expectations for the month. Way, way ahead my expectations. I believe we listened to here. I have this, I think, in the commodities channel. Yeah. Head of oil research for Goldman Sachs explains
that recent
some
falls
stuff.
in oil prices and shipping costs will offset about a quarter of the impact of tariffs that will trickle through inflation positive. On the flip side, it will decrease capital investment to such degree in the United States because of the dominance of the oil industry in the U.S. What is the price point at which it really becomes deleterious for the entire U.S. oil industry?
I think he said 50 bucks.
At this point, we think that lower oil prices are still a net positive for U.S. GDP because the benefits to consumers from a higher real income still outweigh the losses from capex in the energy sector. That said, we do think that the average break-even price in TI terms is around $50 per barrel. So if we move down lower, we're starting to sort of be in the center of the distribution of break-even costs, where a lot of producers will be under pressure.
Yeah, and more US supply will go offline.
When oil prices dropped, to around $30 per barrel, we wrote a piece saying low oil prices are too much of a good thing. And in fact, the sign of the correlation between GDP in the US and oil prices flipped. Low oil prices started to hurt activity on net in US. This time maybe a little bit different. Yes, the shale sector is bigger, but they have become much less price sensitive. They're only reinvesting about 50% of their cash flows back into the business. In 2014, they were borrowing. They were reinvesting 130%.
They were borrowing
their operating cash flow back into the business.
Right, post-COVID has really changed exactly where they're investing in that capital and using that capital. But what is the break-even price right now?
Average in the US, 50 TI, $55 Brent. But there's a whole distribution, and we're starting to hit price levels where it becomes relevant for more and more producers. And in fact, we now forecast US lower 48 crude supply to edge down. At the start of the year, we and the markets had a higher oil price forecast, and we were looking for increases. At this point, unless prices rebound, we think that U.S. lower 48 crude supply has peaked for the next couple of years.
Let's see, this guy have an X account? He sure does. Has he posted anything recently? No, it doesn't seem like it. He does not post on X, sadly. Okay. So now that we got that out of the way, I'll go ahead and I will see you guys in a bit.